Welcome to iHeartRadio Icons. We are live in New York City with Pete Townshend. And is there any truth to the story that there was resistance when it came to releasing Let My Love Open the Door as a single and on your album because somebody somewhere said, doesn't sound like Townshend?
You know, there was resistance. It was Doug Morris, who was my great supporter at Atlantic Records. He brought back Atco, the label, for me and Stevie Nicks, who was his first two signings. Ahmet Ertegun, who founded Atlantic, gave him the job of this new label, and he's gone on to great things, of course. Doug Morris, wonderful, wonderful record guy. Anyway, he was very supportive of my first album, which was Empty Glass. And, you know, the first track was a heavy rock track, the next track was a kind of pop track, the next track was a heavy rock track. And when it got to Let My Love Open the Door, he said, I think we should leave this off. It's too much like a sort of a, I can't remember his exact words, I shouldn't put words in his mouth, but he felt it was too pop. Anyway, so the album came out, and that was the record that was the hit, that was the radio play. And when I did my second album with him, which was Chinese Eyes, I played it to him, and he said, Pete, where's the Let My Love Open the Door?
Well, you were just here in August for 3 area shows on The Who's North American Farewell Tour. The song is Over. And The Who's first American performance was just nearby in the neighborhood at the RKO 58th Street Theater on March 25th, 1967. So there's been a special bond between The Who, yourself, and New York.
Yeah, the whole of the Northeast, I would say, but New York in particular. It wasn't just that it was the first place that we came. You know, if there was really a cultural capital of the USA, it's got to be New York. You know, LA is big for the movies. You know, Chicago has its own cultural center and is a wonderful city, and there's great cities in America. And I have to say quickly that not just New York, but the whole of America has been, you know, I often say to my wife, this is the place that pays my bills. Big time. Big time.
Well, not only have New York City concert stages embraced you and the band, but Broadway stages too, with not one but 2 productions of Tommy. 2 different productions of Tommy.
Slightly different, yeah. Yeah, the last one got really great start. We were doing, you know, a couple million and a half a week at one point, and then it came to the Tony Awards, and for some reason we just got tanked by the Tony Awards. Nobody really understands quite why that happened, but I did get a Tony for 1993. I'm not being greedy, but the show slowed down, and our producers decided to close. They never really wanted us to bring it to Broadway in the first place. It started in Chicago at the Goodman Theater, and it did 8 weeks. Every seat was sold out, great reviews, so we thought we'd bring it to Broadway. Maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe we should have taken it on tour, but it's going on tour, and when it comes on tour, everybody around America will be able to see it. It's a great production.
But how your artistry has been presented has been so unique for a rock performer. I mean, Tommy, of course, an album, your stage show with The Who, the Broadway productions, the hit motion picture, Quadrophenia. We've got now a ballet to talk about right next door here in New York City at City Center, yeah. which is a historic and beautiful theater. Quadrophenia, a rock ballet, is playing at City Center in Manhattan tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Now, you're no stranger to ballet because you took ballet lessons when you were a kid.
I did. Yeah, between the ages of 3.5 and 5, I took ballet lessons, and I was the only boy. It's a bit like that Billy story. What was his name? Billy something. Yeah, and I was the only boy in a class of about 24 girls.
But the boys have to lift the girls.
No,
So you must have been busy all the time.
No. We were just learning how to behave, really. And apparently I didn't behave because I got the slipper on my bare bum in front of 24 very pretty little girls. And I'm amazed it didn't turn me into a premium pervert, but and I don't dream about it, and I don't ever want it to happen again.
Well, speaking of Quadrophenia, you know, that's such a personal work for you, based on real-life observations of the social conditions that you grew up in and experienced in England in the post-war years and in the 50s and into the 60s. Could you ever, when you were composing Quadrophenia, have envisioned it as a ballet?
You know, I wonder about this kind of question, Jim, because, you know, we never know looking forward what's going to happen to us, and, you know, we never sit and try to envision our lives, and if we do, we're wasting our time. You know, I think, you know, Quadrophenia was written not even with any thoughts of social relevance. It was written because The Who had lost touch with their fans. You know, we absolutely had. We were a big band. We were playing stadiums. You know, Keith Moon was really not very well. He was taking a lot of drugs, drinking a lot. He was great fun still, but his playing was starting to fall off. And I felt that the band had lost touch with its roots. So Quadrophenia was a way for me to relink The Who with their roots, with their original fan base, which was the Mods. In 1964, I wrote a song called Can't Explain, and at the Goldhawk Club, where we did a residency in Shepherd's Bush, where we played every week, a little deputation of Mods and one girl, 5 boys and 1 girl. I can remember all their names. I could recite them now. And they came back and they said, you know, Pete, we just want to tell you, we want you to write more songs like this. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, we want more songs like this one. And I said, what's so special about it? And they said, well, it's a song about what? And I said, well, it's about a boy who falls in love and can't explain to his girlfriend. And they went, that's it, we can't explain. So we want you to do it for us. And the next song I wrote was My Generation.
All right, well. I just want our friends in the audience to know.
Sorry?
I just want our friends in the audience to know that I can't even begin to explain how exciting it is for me to be standing a few feet away from one of the world's greatest artists as he performs.
And available for bar mitzvahs and weddings.
There's a big screen behind us, and you are about to see a scene from Quadrophenia, the rock ballet, in which Ace Face and Mod Girl are dancing to an orchestral version of the song that Pete just performed. Those artists that the audience just saw on the screen, they're dancing with their bodies while they're acting with their faces.
Yeah.
It's really pretty incredible to see.
Well, that's, you know, great ballet is that way. What's interesting about Quadrophenia, the ballet, is that it's a hybrid, really. You know, it's we're used to seeing in theatre musicals, in Broadway musicals, we're used to seeing kids dance, and, you know, when people train to be actors in musicals, they have to learn to dance. But most of these kids are trained in ballet, so the kind of things that they do is Romeo and Juliet and stuff like that, you know. So this was a different journey for them. The 3 boys, the 3 principal boys, Paris, Dan, and Syrian, were at the very first workshop, and they put together this first little bit with sadly, our choreographer, Paul Roberts, sweet, fantastic, talented guy. He got cancer before the show finished in London and died. And we wanted to bring him here to New York, but unfortunately we'd have to bring him in spirit, but we miss him terribly. But he and this group of 3 boys created this fantastic, poetic action right at the beginning of the piece, and it's lasted. It was what made me feel that this would work. There's a new poetry in there. It's rock and roll for sure. You know, this is about mods and rockers. The rockers don't get much of a look in, but it's mainly about mod kids and, you know, 62, 64, that kind of period when we were all struggling to find who we were.
Well, for those few people who may not really know much about Quadrophenia, what would be a quick summary of the story?
You know, it's about a young boy who, as soon as the ballet opens, you can see that he's in trouble. He very, very quickly finds himself in front of a psychiatrist. We skipped the preacher from the album. We had a preacher on the album, and we skipped him. And he has a struggle with his mother. He has a struggle with his dad. He finds it hard to fit in with the gang. He falls in love with this beautiful girl, and who is with somebody else, and he has his moment with her. She gives him some time, but not very much. And slowly but surely, he then finds that even his favorite band, The Who, let him down. And how do they let him down? They let him down in just the way we were letting down our fans in 1973. We were bloated, paid too much money, egoistic, out of control, getting headlines for dressing up as Adolf Hitler, all of that stuff, rock and roll, basically. And he recognized that, and so he felt even his great heroes, The Who, had let him down. So everything lets him down. And at the end of the story, he finally loses it. He takes a load of drugs. He gets on a plane to Brighton. He goes to Brighton Beach. He hangs out with a bunch of mods, and they get into a fight with a bunch of rockers. This happened in real life, of course. I was there. I was there in August when the very, very last mods and rocker fight happened on the beach. And I missed the train home and slept under the pier, took a few Purple Hearts and chatted to the boys and stuff. So the whole mod movement for me was really, really important. But he ends up, as sort of, I think, as I did, searching for a spiritual answer. And he ends up out on a rock, all on his own. And I won't give away the ending of this one because we never know when we look at the movie whether Jimmy lives or dies. We don't know when we listen to the album whether he lives or dies. Does he commit suicide or does he carry on? What actually happens? But in this play, we've dealt with it very elegantly.
Well, for those who have listened to the Quadrophenia album...
Thank you.
Or saw the movie, or perhaps saw The Who play the album in concert, and have tickets to Quadrophenia, what would you wish them to come away with this weekend after experiencing your ballet?
They'll feel the story in the way that I intended, I think. I mean, seriously, I think the thing about making a subtle, heartbreaking album with a band like The Who was tricky, because we were at the height of our bombast, you know, incredible recording skills, you know, great musicianship. John Entwistle's horn playing on the album was just spectacular. My synthesizer playing was spectacular. Roger's voice was just superb, particularly on Love Rain on Me. That stuff told the story, but people had to, in a sense, look at the album sleeve and read the story that I'd written on the album jacket to get the story. This one, you get the story. And also you get a chance to interpolate, you know, to inject your own stuff. That's what good art is about. This is a really artistic production, as well as being fantastic fun, and it's great to watch. It's beautiful. The audiences in the UK went nuts for it, so I'm hoping the same thing will happen here.
Well, Pete, on the iHeartRadio app, there's a talkback feature, and a listener, Chris from New York City, Chris Brewster, asks, which one of your performances throughout your long, incredible career stands out as your favorite?
Wow. You know, we've done 2,500 performances. So I don't know that I can honestly answer. I'd have to pick something out of the air. You know, I think I didn't like Woodstock. I should have loved Monterey back in '67, the first big pop festival, but Jimi Hendrix was on as well and kind of blew me away. And so I don't know. I think maybe the first concert in San Francisco, Bill Graham had a place called the Fillmore, and he used to combine jazz stars with rock bands. So we went on and we go to this. And remember, my dad was a jazz musician. So I grew up with jazz music and dance band music. And we go to the theater, and Cannibal Adderley, the great jazz player who used to work with Miles Davis and all these guys, he played on Miles's greatest record, Kind of Blue. If you haven't heard it, you must listen to it. You'll recognize it when you hear it because it's everywhere in the world. But he was supporting The Who. and I just thought of Cannibal Adderley as being a legend, you know.
Well, of course.
But he liked us. And he was very friendly and very supportive. And so that was great until Bill Graham said, you know, you do 2 sets. And I can remember saying, well, that's fine, but how long are the sets? He said, oh, each set is an hour and a half. And I think we only had like 7 songs.
Well, for those of us in the New York metropolitan area, we will forever be grateful to you for your outstanding performance at Madison Square Garden at the Concert for New York City after 9/11. Last night on television, you included Behind Blue Eyes on your list of your 5 most favorite songs of your own.
Yeah, I must learn to play it.
Yes. But Behind Blue Eyes was on your list of 5.
That's right. Yeah.
And the song that you chose as your favorite Who song of all time, we'll actually be hearing that in just a few minutes right here on this stage. You said you had maybe 10 years left as a creative. So, you know, you're doing all sorts of interesting things. Theatrical projects, art projects, book projects. You know, there was this album once, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Who's Next?
Yeah.
Well, my question for you now, Pete Townshend, is what's next?
Well, with Who's Next, that was based on a movie script I wrote for The Who called Lifehouse. And there's been a graphic novel of Lifehouse, which I really, really love. I was so, and you know, I predicted pretty much everything that was going to happen in the future in Lifehouse. I didn't set out to do that. I'm not trying to be a smarty pants. It just did. That was the story. But also, Jeff Krelitz, who's the guy that put the comic together, and I just had coffee this afternoon, and he reminded me that I also sort of invented the sphere. Because the Lifehouse closes with this huge concert. And if you go to the sphere, watch out, because in Lifehouse, the audience gets so high, they disappear.
Well, have you given any consideration to maybe having a residency at a place like the Sphere?
You know, I've not been. I've not seen it. I'm very excited by it. You know, the people that run it wanted it to be a place where bands would play. And the guy that built it is the guy that runs the Madison Square Garden, and he's a big music fan and a rock band fan, and he wanted it to be about music with fantastic visuals. Since then, of course, it's become a medium where there's some storytelling. So maybe, you know, Lifehouse might be great for the Sphere. I don't know, but we shall see.
Well, The Who wrapped up their North American tour a little over a month ago in California. And then there was a backyard benefit in Los Angeles for Teen Cancer America. It must have been, you know, a bittersweet few days filled with some nostalgia when the tour was all coming to an end. And quite like you and Roger, to end it all performing at a charitable event, because I know you've done so much of that, a lot more than most people know about.
Yeah, and that's true for me personally too. But you know, I don't think that's that's not why I do what I do. You know, I do what I do because I love being creative more than I do performing. I'm happier being creative. I'm happier being in my studio writing songs. I'm trying to get back into painting pictures because as a kid I went to art school, so that stuff is. And you know, so many musicians do paint. You know, Joni Mitchell, Chrissie Hynde, Bob Dylan, loads of people paint, and so I am making art of all kinds. But I think the charity stuff, if you had a load of money, that's what you would do. It is, isn't it? It's what you would do. And the problem is when you start to get a buzz from giving money away, and you give away too much. And then you look at your bank balance and you think, oh my God, it's empty. And thank God then you can come back to The Who and say to Roger Daltrey, let's go on tour.
Well, will you go on tour in other parts of the world? You said farewell to us here in North America.
We didn't say farewell. We did a farewell tour.
A farewell tour, yes.
Elton John did 330 shows. We did 22. We've got a few left. If you want them, we're ready to go.
When you came out here at the beginning of this show, you said that you talked too much last night and you didn't think your voice was in very good shape. I've got to tell you, you've shown no evidence that that is in fact true, because you have sounded absolutely amazing tonight. You have been a part, well, of a lot of the people here in this room and who are listening on the radio all over America. You've been a part of their lives, in some cases, since they were, you know, young kids or teenagers. In other cases, you have been a part of people's lives from the moment they were born. They were babies.
Being battered by Who music.
They were babies in the kitchen with their mother feeding them baby food with Who songs coming out of the radio on top of the refrigerator in the kitchen.
It's not just the Who, let's face it. It's, you know, it's like this country has a great history of music going back to the 30s and 40s, even the 20s. And I grew up with all the music from the 40s and the 50s with my dad. And there's, you know, my life with British bands and American bands in particular, just this whole journey from the 60s onwards when we made that change and we decided that music was going to matter. It wasn't just going to be about dancing.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you so very much for being with us.
Thanks for helping me out.
Okay, and don't forget, Pete Townshend's Quadrophenia, the ballet, right next door in New York City Center. I'm told there are like 4 tickets left. NY citycenter.org. Pete Townshend, ladies and gentlemen.